It is day 3 in our deep dive into immigration in the New York and Brooklyn context, so we thought we'd invite a special guest. But before we get to her, we're going to share some facts about helping immigrants settle into their new homeland. BK Live unpacked but unsettled. Here we go. So first slide coming up. Who is rolling out the welcome mat? Of course, the United States is a nation of immigrants, but there is no official federal program or agency to help ease that transition from your old home to America. But there are 28 different municipalities across the country that have offices that do something akin to what the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs does, including those in Seattle, San Francisco, LA, Chi-Town, Atlanta, Philly, and Boston. But New York City, there it is, has the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. We can tell you that it's the oldest immigrant affairs office in the country. Back in 1984, Mayor Ed Koch established the Office of Immigrant Affairs within the Department of City Planning. It wasn't until a few years later in 1990 when the office spun out and became part of the New York City Mayor's Office. Going to take you a little further now. New York's Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs has, of course, been a pioneering agency, and the city itself took a step forward when the IDNYC program became the largest municipal ID program in the country, and more than 860,000 New Yorkers, myself included, are card-carrying members of IDNYC. In fact, a 2016 survey found that a full 25% of folks who are cardholders said it was their only form of official U.S. ID. That's a big deal. So that's a look at New York City's Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, and we're going to hear from its commissioner in the A block.
Thank you, Brian. Living in this city can feel like a full-time job. Just navigating the intricacies of living here, from enrolling your kid in the right school to learning the alternate side parking rules, can prove a daunting task for native New Yorkers. Now, just for a moment, imagine you have to do all those things and more while being a stranger in a strange land.
Well, that is the challenge faced by immigrants and refugees alike as they add to the tapestry that is New York City, but they don't have to go it alone. The Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs assists and advocates for all immigrant New Yorkers. They call it their mission and their promise. And we're joined now by the commissioner of that office, Nisha Agarwal. Welcome back to BK Live.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here. I think politically, on the forefront of everyone's mind is the presidential election. I'm curious to begin how the focus on immigration in the presidential election may have affected your office.
So one of the important ways in which it's affected our office is really just being able to make the to advocate at the national level, right? New York City has a huge stake in what happens in terms of federal policy for immigration. And this presidential election, but even before that, we've really wanted to make our voice heard. So one of the ways that we've done that is the mayor co-leads a coalition of 100 mayors around the country, including some of the cities you mentioned earlier, who've been speaking out and saying, here are some of the policies our national government can pass to make immigration policies better for New York City.
Speaking of those national policies, you know, we like to think that we're informed here, and we do an edit meeting every day, and in anticipation of your visit, we were talking, and someone said, well, DAPA and DACA are canceled now, or there's a freeze, or there's a hold, and we all started spinning and saying, that's not true, this is true. So if we, people who try to stay informed of it, are going back and forth, it must be a gargantuan task for you to inform just everyday folks about how to get in on.
It's a huge question, and here's the simple thing that at least your viewers should know. So in 2012, President Obama enacted DACA for the first time. That program is still around. People should still apply. There are thousands of New Yorkers who haven't done that.
So DACA, make it plain for folks. Deferred action.
For childhood arrivals, and what that means in basically is for people who came to the United States when they were kids and are undocumented. And if they meet certain requirements, they can actually get protection from deportation, they can get work authorization, a social security card, and it can be very transformative for their lives.
So is it shut down or not?
So part of it is not, and then unfortunately the expansion of DACA and the program for the parents of undocumented kids was shut down, or at least on hold in the Supreme Court.
So if you're not exactly sure, this is the news you can use portion.
Yes.
How would someone who, and a lot of people wake up to the fact that, wait, Mom, we came here when I was 4 and now I'm going to college and I don't have this or that. So they might be waking up to the realization that they're not, in fact, citizens, but there's something that they can still do?
Absolutely. So the first thing you can do is you can either call 311 and call and ask for DACA, and you'll get connected to resources and information. You can go on our website, specifically nyc.gov/DACA, and get information. What we've done as a city is provide legal services, other services to help people who want to apply for this program or simply to understand if they're eligible for the program. And so by calling and reaching out to us, you can get connected to those services.
I'm curious, what is the history of the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs? Like, what do you work on a daily basis?
Yeah, we work on, our mission is very broad, but it's a great mission, which is to promote programs and policies that improve the well-being of immigrant New Yorkers. So we did things like launch the municipal ID program, which is the largest program in the country. We do things like provide legal services with our community partners. We also provide basic information about how to navigate city government. So with community organizations, with faith organizations, we will actually bring city staff to explain, how do I get access to health insurance? How do I open a small business? How do I do any number of things that are frankly confusing for all of us, but particularly confusing if there are language barriers or other barriers.
So we mentioned that there were 28 other cities who have a program similar to the one that you had at the office. But this notion of sanctuary cities, that was a buzzword a little while ago, and like whether New York is one and what that's going to mean with federal money, and some people are mad about it. So what's your working definition of a sanctuary city?
You know, the truth is there's no real working definition of a sanctuary city. The way we like to think about our work is that we're welcoming and inclusive. And unfortunately, I think this term sanctuary cities is used as a way of critiquing the kinds of policies New York and other cities have, but really what it is about is making sure everyone is included.
I'm curious, getting back to the presidential campaign, I'm curious, you know, a lot's been said of Donald Trump's, dare I say, far-fetched immigration ideals. If you were running for president, if you were president, where do you think we should go, not just, you know, locally here in New York, but nationally with our immigration sort of policies?
Absolutely. So I think I'm in agreement with a lot of people around the country in saying, first, we need to have immigration reform, right? There are so many people who are undocumented, working hard, building families here, and don't have a path to legalization. So I think that is very, very important. And then alongside that, we have to think about, once people are here, how do we get them connected to the workforce? So the job they start on, they actually are in a career ladder or access to educational opportunities. This is something we call in the field immigrant integration, but really it's a question of who gets to come and go, and then how can they thrive once they're here? And I think that would be my immigration policy if I were advising the candidates.
You're hired.
Well, listen, there's a dearth of voices, but
I'm with her.
If we're talking about that second part of integrating and really having people get the full benefits of their citizenship or just placehood in America, you guys make a very low bar to entry with the office, and you have translation services. You advocate for bringing new languages and all of these things into basic forms. So I wondered just what is the sort of point of entry for most New Yorkers in dealing with your office?
Yeah, so there's a few different points of entry, but I think one of the most important is we have a very diverse multilingual outreach team. So these are folks from immigrant communities who are in the community every day, providing information, educational outreach. So connecting with those folks, reaching out to us and saying, I have a community organization, or I just have a community that wants to talk to you about services that are available, we'll be there and we would love to connect.
And you produce a TV show too.
Well, we did. So we have a program called We Are New York.
Yeah.
And what it is it's a series of 10 episodes that are really meant to help New Yorkers practice their English, and also tells the story of New Yorkers working together to solve problems and navigating city government. We have thousands of New Yorkers who are participating in this in libraries and church basements, and they're like actually pretty good shows. We won an Emmy Award. So we would love to host more of these sessions around the city for folks who may be interested.
Very cool.
And getting back, curious,
to the elections?
Well,
It's a big topic.
Perhaps there's an issue of getting facilitating immigrant New Yorkers to be able to register to vote. How is your office kind of facilitating that?
So one of the big things we did on that was actually translate the voter registration forms. So now in New York City, you can get access to voter registration forms in the top 15 languages that are spoken by New Yorkers. And that's very important because it helps people register to vote in a language that they understand. It eliminates that barrier. You can get those at the libraries. You can get them on the website for the Campaign Finance Board. So that's been a big part. We've also been doing a lot of outreach to immigrant communities to let folks know. October 14th was the deadline, but if you become a naturalized citizen after October 14th and before the 29th, which is still coming up, you can still register to
there's
vote.
a sweet spot
There's
in there.
a little extension there for some people, and many people don't know that, so that's my
More
message.
news you can use. Say that again.
Okay, so if you became a U.S. citizen after October 14th,
Right.
you can still register to vote by October 29th. So you get a little extension, and you just have to go to your borough's Board of Election and
Just
sign
show
up.
right at the. So one more thing in that becoming an American, I know one of the mayor's proposals that he bundled was about this backlog that so many people face when they stood in line, as so many people like to say, and really took the time and filled out all the forms. There was a statistic I read that folks from the Philippines who applied for citizenship in like 1991 are just being processed right now to enter the country. So there's all kinds of backlog on the federal level that the mayor is trying to really bust up.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things there. On the sort of example of folks from the Philippines who've applied, that's where you have sort of general immigration backlogs
Right.
for visas. So that's, if I were president, what I would do to fix the immigration system.
Yeah.
Separately, I think one of the problems we've seen is that when people actually applied to be citizens, there was a huge spike this year because of the presidential
Right.
election. And although the federal government is sort of on pace for how they normally process, they haven't been able to keep up with the demand.
Right.
And so that's one of the things. We work very closely with the citizenship folks in the federal government. We've been talking to them. What can we do to help move this along now, but also into the future? Because we want people to become citizens and we want them to vote. So what can we do to make sure the bureaucracy doesn't stand in their way?
Nisha, thank you so much. What is that MOIA website again?
It is nyc.gov/immigrants.
Phenomenal. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
appreciate it.
You're an excellent guest. Thank you very much for being here.